to be our basis. And then we'll do the Malbim, okay? As usual, the Malbim is the one who's going to give us a deeper understanding into what's going on here. And then we may do a little bit of a summary and talk bigadol about Malchut Bichlal, and if there's a difference between Malchut Yisrael and Malchut Yehuda, and we'll see if we'll manage to handle that, okay? So let's get going. Again, I will read it. It's, as I say every time, no self-respecting Israeli will understand what I'm reading. It's almost incomprehensible, without perushim, without commentary. Very difficult to understand. Hoshea, he doesn't change in this parak, he doesn't change next parak. The whole book is pretty much. So you guys have a 4 on many people that you could actually say, I learned the book of Hoshea and understood something. Kedaber Ephraim retet, nasahu b'Yisrael, v'yesham babal v'yamot. ועתה יוסיפו לחתו, ויעשו להם מסכה מכספם, כי תבונם עצבים מעשה חרשים כולו. להם הם אומרים, זובחי אדם עגלים משכון. לכן יהיו כענן בוקר, וכטל משקים הולך, כמוצי סוער מגורן, וכעשן מערובה. ואנוכי אדוני אלוהיך מארץ מצרים, ואלוהים זולתי לא תדע, ומושיע עין בלתי. אני ידעתיך במדבר, בארץ תלובות. כמראיתם ויסבעו, שבעו וירום ריבם. על כן שכחוני, ויהי להם כמו שחל, כנמר על דרך אשור. אפגשם כדוב שקול, ואקרא סקור ליבם, ואוכלם שם כלבי, חיית השדה תבקעם. That was פסוק ח'. שכחתך ישראל כבי ועזרך, אהי מלכך אפוא, ויושיעך בכל עריך, ושופטיך אשר אמרת, תנה לי מלך ושרים. אתן לך מלך באפי, ואקח בעברתי. צרור עוון אפרים, צפונה חטאתו, חבלי יולדה יבואו לו, הוא בן לא חכם, כי עת לא יעמוד במשבר בנים. מיד שאול אבדם ממוות אגלם, אהי דבריך מוות, אהי כתובך או כתובך שאול, נוחה מסתר מעיניי, כי הוא בן אחים יפרי, יבוא קדים רוח אדוני ממדבר עולה, ויבוש מקורו ויחרב מעיינו, הוא ישסה אוצר כל כלי חמדה. תשם שומרון כי מרתה באלוהיה, בחרב יפולו עולליהם ירוטשו, והריותיו יבוקעו. I read the first pasuk of the next chapter, as according to his chalukah, that's then the next wording of the next beginning is Shuva Yisrael ad Hashem Elokecha, which is what we read on Shabbat Shuva, the Shabbat in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the Shabbat Shuva. After Tisha B'Av, Shabbat Nachamu. That's from Yeshayahu. This is this we learn Shabbat Shuva. Oh. Is everything okay, Ezra? Yeah. Okay. You cranking the phone? Okay. So it says Shuva Yisrael ad Hashem Elokecha. That's why you call it Shabbat Shuva. I'll shame this word that we'll see the next, and we'll see tomorrow, next week. Okay. It's always funny. I laugh when I read this. It's like it's funny to me because there's just right. You got nothing. You got nothing. I got nothing. You have nothing. It's nothing. There's nothing to get out of it. Almost. It's amazing what is here when we open it up, but it's so hard. It's almost ridiculous how what he says. He says it's very concise. He says these things are said in titles. All psukim in Hoshea are titles. He says something. It sort of means a lot more than what he says. The Dat Mikra. That's what he says. That's what he says. This just like the rest of Hoshea. Right? He says ukedarko shel Hoshea, like Hoshea's way. All these things are just said in Rashi Prakim, in just titles without explaining themselves. So we have to open them up. All right. Is
it beyond just the time period? Why it's so hard?
Oh, for sure. For sure. No, this is hard. There are different prophets. Different prophets speak in different ways. You'll see Yirmiyahu is going to be easier to understand than this. Yirmiyahu is easier to understand. It's not easy, but it's easier than this. Okay? So let's go on. Okay? Beseder. So the Dat Mikra is explaining this easily. He says, at first, And the thing in the dot, we can also bring in some of the other parshanim as we go, not the Malbi. Kedavar Ephraim retet, nasahu b'Yisrael. When Ephraim first spoke, when Ephraim began its kingship, or Malchut Yisrael began, they were powerful. When he spoke, people were afraid. Retet is retet. He translates it in reish tet tet, in shaking. People were shook from Ephraim. They were impressive. They were frightening. They were powerful. When he spoke, people listened, or were fearful. Nasahu b'Yisrael. He was like a nasi, nasa, right, from the word raised up. He was raised up in Israel. That was the beginning of Malchut Yisrael. Says Hoshea, there was a chance. There was a power here. In Rashi and others say when Yerovam started Malchut Yisrael, he had the guts, the courage, the daring to stand in front of Shlomo HaMelech and chastise him. Shlomo HaMelech, who people came from all over the world to hear his wisdom. Yerovam got up and said, and who was Yerovam? He was one of the king's ministers, one of the king's workers. He wasn't like something so special. He had the oz, the daring to stand, and the courage to stand before Shlomo and say, what you're doing is not beseder. Whatever it was, you're not beseder. It's mamash oz. Kedaver Ephraim retet. He had power. He was unafraid.
Was Yerovam right?
At the point, he was right when he chastised Shlomo. Yeah. Nasahu b'Yisrael. He was a powerful presence in Israel.
Yerovam only stood up after Shlomo.
What?
Yerovam stood up only after Shlomo Melech died.
No. He started for Shlomo and he ran away. Then he runs away to Egypt because Shlomo wants to kill him for some reason. Okay. Here I read Rashi. Shekinei Yerovam lamakom. Yerovam said, "You can't be serving avodah zarah. You can't be marrying all these shiksas. You can't." He stood up. He was serious. V'diber keneged Shlomo dvarim kashim. Ubera'ada sharei melech gadol haya Shlomo. Shlomo was a big king. To stand and do that, oh my goodness. Misham zachal yinaseh liot melech Yisrael. From there, he was worthy of becoming a king because chutzpah. It's a great. The Zohar says, chutzpah is malchuta lelo taga. Chutzpah is kingship without a crown. It's a very interesting thing, right? The person who's really chatzuf, in a sense, he's a king. He's not afraid of anything. Someone who's really has a lot of chutzpah, there is a kingship in him, in that he's not subjugated to anything. It's an interesting point. There's something powerful about it. It says, Yisrael azin sheba umot. Israel are the most az. The most az is the most courageous of the nations. Israel's most courageous. These nebich guys, whatever they so courageous. They have the chutzpah to stand, as we learned in Mordechai, and we learned in political teachings of Esther. They stand before anyone. They don't care who you are, and they say, there's a God above. I don't care who you are. You could be the greatest. You could be Paro. You could be Nebuchadnezzar. You could be Achashverosh. You could be Haman. You could be, you name it. There's someone above you every time. You could be Hitler. You could be whoever it is. You don't fool us. That there's something very, very chatzuf about that. Right? So Yerovam, in this sense, is doing that to Shlomo. He has the chutzpah to sense. That's the perush that Rashi adds on here. And that the greatness of Yisrael, that here the Dat Mikra just sort of as the empire, he positions it on Yerovam himself, who himself brought a power into Malchut Yisrael. But that same power sometimes can go off. Okay? Vayesham babal vayamot. He said, when you start going off, they started serving avodah zarah, labal, vayamot, and that was the end of the malchut. Here, the Dat Mikra says it wasn't just anyone; it was vayasham babal. Who did Baal in Which king, historically? Who is the king? No, Yerovam served Hashem. Yeah, he did the Agalim. He served Hashem. I mean, he was wrong what he did. He made the Agalim. But who was the first one to serve?
Ben Navat. No?
No, that's Yerovam. No, who's the first one to serve the Baal? The Baal is Avodah Zarah Mamish in Israel. Achav. Menashe is in Yehuda. Achav was the one who brought in. We talked about Achav a whole bunch of times in Yoshua and Yericho. We talked about Achav in different ways. But Achav was the first king. He was the first one ever in Malchut Yisrael who changed the official religion of the state almost. He turned it into Avodat Baal. Who came up against him? We saw this in the very beginning of Hoshea. Who is the king who went against him and killed all of Beit Achav? That's Chizkiyahu in Malchuti, right? He was a general. He was a general before. No? Ezra?
Come on, Ezra, save us.
Yonah was one that...
Not Yonah. Yonah is a prophet. We're talking about a king.
Come on, Ezra. He's a general that we talked
The general became a king. Remember?
I'm not going to find that. Pages and pages.
Chizkiyahu is a melech in Yehuda.
Oh, come on. Sorry.
Yehu. Beseder Yehu, the king, he בעצם וישם בבעל וימות. Who killed the person וישם בבעל? Says that because Yehu got up and killed him. In other words, but Malchut Yisrael, once it went off, started off with the Agalim, it went off. Now, an interesting understanding, Rashi says, כיוון שעלה לגדולה וישם בעכו"ם וימות, נכרת בית ירבעם וכן בית אחיו. He says, there may be something, and we're to follow up Rashi's point here, there may be something that same chutzpah that allowed him to stand up to Yerovam, when it's off, it allows you also to stand up to Hashem. Chutzpah is a dangerous weapon. In its place, it's good. It's almost the power of kingship, but sometimes it's wrong. You're not to be chatzuf to a Rav. You're not to be chatzuf to Hashem. You're supposed to be chatzuf to someone who needs to be chatzuf to him. But when you use chutzpah, you see this about teenagers all the time. This is like classic teenagers. That what? They have chutzpah, and sometimes it's impressive, right? It's impressive what they're willing to do. They're willing to challenge the establishment. And then suddenly they challenge you. Or they challenge their teacher, and you're like, wait, whoa, 1 second. It was nice when you were challenging the establishment that needs to be challenged, but you're not supposed to be challenging me too, the tradition, you're not supposed to be religion, whoa, stop. But the same power, what? The same power of chutzpah is a dangerous kli. When it's wielded right, it's powerful. It's powerful no matter what. But when it's wielded correctly, then it's directed in the right place. Yerovam, who had the chutzpah to stand up to Shlomo, unfortunately uses the same chutzpah to go the other way also. So this is a general statement. Again, Hoshea has time and time again, you guys have been with me for a long time here already with Hoshea, almost every chapter we've seen some kind of criticism about the Malchut. He did not like the Malchut in Israel. Okay? Critiquing from here, from everywhere. He talks about the beginning, to the end, to the middle. We saw critiques from much, of all different, of Beit Achav, of Beit Yehu, of Beit Yerovam, pretty much everyone, until Hoshea ben Elah, the last king, who the Malbim says that our Hoshea liked, the last king of Israel. We'll see that when the Malbim goes on. But this concept of being against the king, it's here, and in this parak, it's really going to be brought again to the fore. But already here he says Ephraim started off powerfully and they fell. Ve'ata, he says in Pasuk Bet, Yosifu lachato ve'asu lehem masecha mikaspam ketvunam atzabim masech harashim kulo lahem em omrim zovche adam agalim mishakum. Wait for that end, the ending, we'll talk about the ending. So ve'ata yosifu lachato, okay? So the first chapter, according to the Dat Mikra, the first pasuk was when Achav went off. He went off to Avodah Zarah Mamash. Yehu stopped that. Yehu stopped Avodah Zarah. Yeah, the problem was he continued the Agalim of Yerovam. V'ata yosifu lachto. It was like there was a chance here. It was perfect. You stopped Achav, the real bad guy. Now there's a chance to come back to the service of Hashem in Beit HaMikdash, maybe in serving Hashem as should be. ועשו להם מסכה מכספם כתבונם עצבים מעשה חרשים כולם. They continue making or serving these agalim. Okay? They didn't stop doing it. They continued what was done before Achav. They continued Yerovam. They continued doing these agalim. Okay? The Mikdash is around the whole time.
How is that?
Because Mikdash is in
The ball, like you turn the ball and then you're like.
Well, it's two separate states.
In Yehuda.
The Mikdash is in Yehuda.
Right, but
And they want something for themselves.
We don't know anything about Yehuda. Hoshea
Oh, we don't.
very, very rarely has hinted to Yehuda. He's mentioned them, but very like 5% of the time of what we've been learning, it has been considered to Yehuda. Okay, he is a prophet towards Israel.
They're doing good. So they're chilling.
It seems to be they're doing better than Israel. So they're much better.
Malchut Israel was so bad during all the time, and they didn't worship in the Beit HaMikdash. Why didn't they allow to make a sanctuary in Malchut Israel? Will solve the problem.
They did
something for themselves, not Baalim, like something.
No, the Galim. Why didn't Hashem allow it?
Yeah, why didn't they do like a small sanctuary? Okay, this is for.
Well, they did. They did. Those are the Agalim. Those are the Agalim.
That's something with the Heksha.
From who?
They had their own party who gave
for Hashem.
Why would Hashem give a hechsher to this? Hashem doesn't want them to do this.
I'm not talking about Agalim. Should make like
A shul.
Yeah, it's kind of a micro Beit Mikdash where you can do sacrifices, but it isn't the place.
Well, I don't understand. Who are you asking? Who is this question towards? Hashem or towards Yehovah? Who are you asking this question towards?
I see it like that. That Malchut Israel is upset that partly also upset that the Yerushalayim is in Yehuda, and all the holiness is within Yehuda. So they built for themselves the Agalim.
Right.
They could made it like in a kosher way where the Anshe Knesset Agla decide, okay, I have something for you.
That's what we said last week with the
Right, Nachman. Right,
Exactly.
right. Well, what the Malbim said last week of that, they had a different Masoret, right? A Masoret of following Yaakov. Right. So in the depth, they may have thought they were. We're not 100% sure how much they believed their own lie there. But there was a convincing argument that what they were doing was correct.
The problem is that
But Hashem
is divided.
Well, Hoshea doesn't like it. But you're right. Hashem, Shushan is saying, listen, Hashem divided them. Hashem said there should be two. So apparently, of course, it's a punishment to Shlomo that they divided. It's 100%. No, it started off legit per se, Malchut Yisrael, but Hashem wanted it to be a breathing connection between the two. That was obviously the plan. Yerovam very quickly, almost the first thing he does.
Why punish Shlomo when you punish the Am Yisrael, like the whole Malchut Israel at the same time?
That's why Yerovam is considered.
I don't know, killed Shlomo in a very embarrassing way and be done with it.
That's why I'm saying Yerovam is considered one of the most evil people in Am Yisrael ever, because he chose. This is how they say he chose to block Am Yisrael from Beit HaMikdash.
The walls, right?
With the walls, the guards, however it is. In other words, that was not the plan. It was really not the plan for this to happen. The plan, Hashem's plan, per se, or Hashem's wish for Am Yisrael, even though he doesn't stop us from having free will, was for the Malchuyot to be two separate Malchuyot with a Kesher in Beit HaMikdash. Okay? Now there are psukim and there are midrashim that seem to hint that it may have stayed that way. In other words, when Hashem said, I'm going to break off 2 and 10, he doesn't say until when. It may really have been like that forever. There may have been 2 kingdoms.
Forever?
Yeah. At first glance, it definitely seems like that's a possibility.
They cannot exist without, not in peace when there's only one place in Mikdash in Jerusalem.
Why not? You would have 2 places and one place of worship.
If they would do peace, then they would also recognize, okay, like if you have peace and we all go to one place, reunite again. So what's the point having 2 kingdoms?
But maybe it wouldn't reunite. Maybe it would be 2 places with one focal place. It's all political. No, באמת, אבל באמת. Or like they say now, make Yerushalayim an international city. What? It's basic UN. They say it again.
They said it like 40 years ago. Basic UN.
No, I'm saying it's always on the table, that idea. Okay, so let's come back here, okay? Okay, now I want to add something. The Malbim obviously says, and the Malbim likes to say this, he said this at least 3 times throughout the book, and he says that the second time around, V'atay yosifu lachto, he says like this. Right. He always says that at first the king was the one who made the agalim, and he sort of forced everyone. But there were different times throughout the history, towards the end of Malchut Yisrael, where the king wanted to change it. And the king wanted, you guys remember this Malbim? The king wanted...
But when they wanted to do the right thing, and they wanted to bring people back to Hashem, they were then kicked out immediately out of power because the people didn't like it.
Right. Nachon, very good. That's right. The two katot, he says, the Malbim says there was a machloket in Yisrael. At first they could say, oh, Yerovam is forcing us to do this. But at some point in history, it shifted and they really bought into it. That's what he says, V'ata yosifu lachto. Mikaspam kitvuna matzarim. It was from their own money now. It wasn't Yerovam's money. It was their own money. They're financing the agalim. It already shifted to being their responsibility. Hashem says, listen, when I could give me something to work with. Let me blame the king. But now it's already gotten to the situation where you've already really, really bought in to this. It's been there, right? And that's why he says, Lahem omrim zovche adam agalim yishaku. To them they say, and here the B'dat Mikra explains, there was a saying going on in Malchut Yisrael, Zovche Adam Agalim Yishaku. So let me read you the options, what he says here. The pshat is, Zovche Adam, they who bring human sacrifices, Agalim Yishakun, you will kiss the Agalim. That's like the statement. It was a statement said at that point. Now what does it mean? Okay, 1. Hazovchim shebe bnei Adam. Not people who zoveach bnei Adam. Not that you bring people as sacrifices. The people who sacrifice, that's how you have to read it. Chayavim lenashek ha'egel. You would have to come and kiss the egel. That was what you would bring a sacrifice, and then you would go and go kiss, like we kiss. The kotel. Anyone here ever kissed the kotel?
Yeah.
Okay, it's not when you look at kiss that galim. And you go, 1 second, I actually kiss an object or a holy place. They would force them to kiss the agalim. That's what it is. If you come bring a korban, you have to kiss the agalim. You have to love the agalim, right? When we kiss the wall, what are we doing? What is that? What is it? They kiss the Western wall. Like what are you, nuts? Why are you kissing a wall? In a sense, what you're doing is you're kissing you're kissing Hashem who's behind the walls, right? It's like you kiss the Sefer Torah. You're feeling the real emotional connection to He who resides behind the walls. This is what they're doing here in Malchut Ephraim. They're kissing the agalim. What may have started off as being forced by the king, as being a attempt to keep, they really became a fabric of their religious life. It was something that they really did. They didn't have to be told anymore. They came, they kissed the agalim. It was something that was part. There's a midrash that says that people had agalim, like replicas. You would go to the agalim store. When you went up to Beit El or Beit Dan, you went to the toy store right next to it. What's it called? The store? The stores that?
Tchotchkes.
The Tchotchkes store. Right next. No, what is it called? They're like the stores in the museums, the gift shop. You go to the gift shop, right, wherever it is, right? The smart museums have the exit that go through the gift shop, right? You have to go through the gift shop, and then you have to struggle with your children and say, before you go, you say, "No one say anything. You're not getting anything. Come, run," and you run. Oh, maybe just I do that?
No. We have this thing. It's only for tourists.
Whatever it is, they get you. They get you there. What?
The shotguns? What?
Tchotchkes, he said, the tchotchkes, like the little toys. But you ever go to a museum gift shop, right? After you go through and you see the Museum of Natural History, I'm from there. There are the shirts, the teddy bears, all the things, like the mugs, right? I went through the museum and I lived to tell the tale. What?
It's
Like a team, oh, good video. In sports, it would be like a team store, right? So they had a team store. The team store, they sold little agalim. Really, he's not kidding. They're not kidding. They sold little agalim.
Agalim team, the Avodah Zarah team.
Right, it was the agalim team or the agalim store, the gift store, and people would buy them, bake it, and take them home, and they would kiss them at home. That's what the Midrash said. They would have your egel. You would come. Oh man, my crop was great today. Thank you, egel. You give it a kiss. In other words, it became something like idolatry, even though again they're serving Hashem. Okay, they didn't think it was the egel. They realized it's Hashem. They're not Ovdei Avodah Zarah in the classic sense. They're serving Hashem through the egel. But it became something that was mamash widespread throughout the people. That's what the Midrash says. Okay?
But how's it possible that they're like serving this calf if they know from Har Sinai that you can't?
What?
Like,
You weren't here this morning, David.
This morning we talked about exactly that.
How do you know? You listened.
listened.
Because he did his homework. And you heard. So listen
And I was
to...
know where's these midrash?
So listen to the shir today. Okay? It's Besamicha. We mamash talked about these things. We talked about this and here. It was a really important shir I met. You should listen to it. It was mamash important shir for a lot of things. Also Hoshea. It will help you understand both ways. Beseder. Okay. So this is again Malchut Yisrael sinking into the Avodah Zarah, even though it began well, right? Kedaber Ephraim Ratit. It started off powerfully, and it sunk into this confused Avodah Zarah, not Avodat Zarah, Avodat Hashem, wrong Avodat Hashem. Lachen yi ke'anan boker uchetal mashkim olech k'mot Yisrael migon ke'ashan ma'aruba. 4 mashalim here, 4 parables of how it is, Mamlechet Yisrael is about to disappear. You're going to be like Anan Boker, like the morning clouds. You guys have it here sometimes. It's like right in the morning, you wake, it's all misty, and then 5 minutes later, Ketal Mashkim Holech, the tal in the morning, right? The glass is wet in the morning, and then the dew, and then it disappears. Kemot Yisoer Migoren, when they would take in the sheaf, the wheat from the fields, the wheat is covered with this. It's called chaff, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, and you like throw it up, and it just disperses into the wind. Ukeashan me'aruba, or like smoke coming out of a chimney. All these things are teorim of what's going to happen to Malchut Yisrael. You guys are going to disappear. I know, this is what it says. 4 different parables, each one. The Malbim, in his way, will explain each one, how each one means something a little different. But Bigadol, the statement is, you guys are disappearing, very much like Hevel. Right? Hevel, the guy who's killed, Cain and Hevel. We've said, what's Hevel? What does Hevel mean? Hevel is the mist. When you say something, Hevel peh. That's Hevel. That's why he's called Hevel, because he disappeared. So this is what they're going to say about Malchut Yisrael. Malchut Yisrael is going to disappear. They really do, by the way, disappear. Malchut Yisrael. It is the Holocaust, the not spoken about Holocaust, or the not what?
Silent Holocaust.
The silent Holocaust. Not silent just because we don't talk about it, but how much? 10 tribes out of 12 disappeared. We don't know where they are. We don't know what happened to them.
Binyamin
Binyamin and Yehuda stay. Levi, parts of Levi went to Galut.
3 Shadim we have.
Good, I'm happy.
Killed or they were like
But it's 3 out of 13 because if you're counting Ephraim and Manasseh, what?
They were killed or they were like dispersed?
They were taken to exile and disappeared. Any Jew sitting here, pretty much, is either from Yehuda, Binyamin, or Levi. Or maybe Shimon, but Shimon disappeared already a long time ago. He was swallowed into Yehuda probably. But it disappeared. If someone says, oh yeah, I'm from Asher, like, okay. It's nice that you say that, but where in the world do you get that from? Some statements are Gerim in the world are coming from the Bnei Menashe, the Ethiopians, the different people who were dispersed throughout the world may be from the 10 tribes. They may be, and the Bemet may be.
It's not sure like some midrash like going to like past the inside the river.
Sambation, yeah. We'll leave that one out. There's a midrash. Yeah, there's a midrash like that. Anyway.
That'd be epic, bro. To have next year.
What?
Like all just waiting there, like right now, that'd be epic.
I don't really buy into that.
No,
The
I-
pshat of that midrash. Yeah, that I think
it's pretty cool midrash.
What is it?
There's like a river, and like they're all like the 10 tribes are sent across the river, and like we can't get to the river like now. Like, it's like
But
impossible. But like when Mashiach comes, like
They'll come with
they'll
them.
cross back over and like speak.
They're united.
But John is not a real river, no?
what?
Sambadion. It's not a real river.
I first of all, I don't know enough about this to really say. I know the midrashim. I don't have a good explanation to them, so I'll prefer to remain silent. Okay. So now we continue here in the Dat Mikra's explanation. Okay, he says Hashem in Psukim Daled and Hey. Hashem is again asking, amazed in a bad way, and like I was so good for you. Anochi Adonai Elohecha me'eretz Mitzrayim. You had me straight out. I took you out of Egypt. Me. Ve'elohim zulati lo teda. You didn't know any other gods. Umoshia ayin bilti. No one saved you besides me. Why did you put these agalim? Why do you need these intermediaries? Why do you think this is so necessary for you? I saved you time and time again. You heard from me, Lo yeh lecha Elohim acherim al panai. Why did you go there? Ani edaticha bamidbar be'eretz taluvot. I knew you. Only I knew you. I was there to save you and help you. He says, Ikarti otcha, ahavti otcha, da'agti lecha. I knew you, I loved you, I took care of you in the desert. Right? In a land that is thirsty or desolate. Parched. Hashem's like yelling out in pain. Why did you leave? For what reason did you leave? I was there with you, for you, helping you, taking care of you, worrying about you. Why did you leave? These soups are fascinating in this case. And Hashem's like, why? כמריתם ויסבאו, שבעו וירום ליבם, על כן שכחוני. Here he quotes the basic pasuk said quite a few times in the Torah, right? ורם לבבך ושכחת את השם. Right? When he says, it was exactly the opposite. When I gave you good, then what did you say? To me? Al kain shechachuni. That's what caused them to forget him. In other words, it was a no-win situation. Hashem says, I took care of you. And what did you do?
You thought it was your own doing.
You thought it was your own doing. So that's why.
You didn't need me.
And that's why I'm going to make you hurt. You'll hurt, and then maybe you'll come back to me. In other words, Hashem has two modes of trying to bring us back. One way is to give us great abundance, and one way is to take it away. There are two ways. In other words, when one doesn't work, he does the other one. Maybe you have to play with them. We'll see later on the parak. Maybe he has to play with it. But right now, Hashem is saying, listen, I was there. I gave you everything, and you when you got fat, you were out like a ro'eh in the sun, right? You were like sheep grazing, and you got full, and then your heart grew greater, and you said, and then you forget me. Shechachoni. Now, for all the people who like animals, Vayilem kmo shachal. I'm going to be like a lion. Kenamer al derech Ashur, as a leopard on the path. Ashur here is a machloket if it's Ashur, like the Assyria, or Ashur comes from the word sea, Shur, like a leopard lying in wait, watching the path, lurking. Okay. If Geshem kedov shakul, I will meet them like a bereft. That's what it says?
Yes.
Wow,
That's
good
right.
word.
Wow.
Bereft a bear, mother bear, she bear, who loses her cubs. What?
Dova?
Gedov shakul.
Dov shakul.
In other words, right? You always know when you mess with a bear's cubs, you're in big trouble, right?
Oh, no.
It's like the one thing you do not do when you meet a bear. You don't take their cub and swing it around your head.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Especially if you've seen Old Yeller, you know what happens if you mess with a baby bear.
Right. Yeah. If the mama bear is around.
Mama bears around.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what he says. If Yeshem Gedov Shakul, ve'ekras go libam, I will rip open their closed hearts. Ve'ochlem sham kelavi, I'll eat them like a lion again. Remember we talked about the different names of a lion. We talked about, right? Kachayat hasadeh tivakem, the animals of the field will rip them apart. Who are the animals of the field? We'll see the last pasuk in the chapter. We'll say who the animals in the field are. Again, we just remember pasuk Gimel had 4 different parables to what they're like, right? The mist and the tal, the dew and the smoke and the chaff, right? All those things. So here again, we have 4. Shachal, Namer, Dov, and Lavi. Okay? As a result of you being so nothing, you're going to be eaten by 4 different animals. Now here the Malbim goes into the 4 animals. They're like the animals in Daniel's vision, which is the 4 different Yavan and Paras and Madai and Bavel.
What's the 4th animal? The lion, leopard?
The lion,
Bear.
the Levi. The bear is Paras and Levi is Edom.
In English, there are 2 lions.
Right, there are 2 lions.
Oh.
Again, the Shachal, that they say is Nebuchadnezzar. Namer is Ashur. Dov is Paras. And the Levi is Edom. The scary one, the last one, the 4th one.
But aren't we switching our kingdoms?
For sure. This for the Malbim says this is a parable for future references. The pshat here is just everything here is Ashur. Okay, Ashur is the one who's going to rip you apart in many different ways.
It's between Yehuda and.
What do you mean Yehuda? No Yehuda here. What Yehuda?
Right, but Yehuda goes through all those 4.
Israel goes through all those 4. You're right. You're right. Yehuda goes through. But there's a statement of you seeing this prophecy as for
Because
for
if they're
the future
finished
too.
by this point.
I understand what you're saying. Okay. But again, prophecy sometimes goes further than the specific case here. Again, it's mitbakesh. The dove, a lion, and a mare. These are things that Daniel sees. It's mitbakesh to correlate the 2 here. Okay, but the pshat is not. The pshat is, or the pshat is there, as the Dat Mikra explains. These are just 4 parables of what's going to happen to Am Yisrael. They're going to be completely ripped apart by all different kinds of animals. So though, Tov. Shichetcha Yisrael kibi ve'ezrecha. So the explanation here is Shichetcha, you have destroyed yourself, Israel. Shichetcha, you have mashchit. Mashchit is destroy or desolate yourself. Kivi be'ezrecha. He says, I am here to help you, but you don't want my help. You have brought this about on yourself. And that's the next pasuk also is kashur to this. Ehi malkecha efo. Ve'yoshiacha bechol arecha. It's weird wording. Ehi malkecha efo, and he says, Aye melkecha, malkecha efo. He says, Ehi isn't I will be like I ehye. Ehi is a question. Where? Ehei. Where is it? Where is your king? Your king really? Where is he? Let him come and save you. Where is he? You wanted a king. You asked me for a king. Where is he? Come on, go ahead, save them. Mr. King. Mr. Am Yisrael who wants a king. Let's see how he saves you now. Right? It's like what Hashem said. Remember there was another one we said, where are your other gods? Come ahead, go ahead, bring them. You're serving them, let them save you. Right? We saw that in Hoshea way back. Like, hey, I don't remember where it was. ושופטיך אשר אמרת, תנה לנו מלך ושרים. And your shoftecha, right? You're the people you wanted to, right? That's what Am Yisrael says, right? We want a king, l'shaftenu kikol ha'amim, right? That's what he says there. Yeah, we want a king to judge us or lead us like all the nations. Hine v'shoftecha asher amarta, the shoftim that you wanted, tna li melech v'sar. That's what you asked for when you asked for a shofet. Where are they? Bring them. Let them do something. No?
We learn from here that a king is b'diavad.
Oh, wait 1 second. We're going to talk about, as I said, we're going to talk about this because the next one is the next book is even worse. Okay? So here another explanation is Ehi Malkecha. I want to be your king, like Ehiyeh Asher Ehiyeh, right? Hashem says that's my name. When he says what's your name, what Moshe says at the bush, what will I tell them? And he says Ehiyeh, right? Ehiyeh Asher Ehiyeh, Ehiyeh Shlachani Alechem. I want to be your king, but you don't want me to be your king. You wanted a shofet. You wanted other people. Mamash, he quotes here what exactly Shushan, he quotes the pasuk there. Ki oti ma'asu, lo otcha mi'asu, right? When Hashem says to Shmuel, no, they don't not want you, they don't want me. Okay, we're going to talk about this soon, about this concept of bashing the Malchut that Hoshea has just done throughout. So the Shushan is being a good student and understanding what he's being told time and time again. He says, so apparently, king, that's not good. All of Hoshea has been there.
If people talk about like when Mashiach comes, we'll have a Malchut. No, don't.
Hold on to that thought, okay? That's what I was saying in the beginning of the class when I said we're going to have to talk about Malchut. And
you don't.
And is there a difference between Malchut Yisrael and Malchut Yehuda? Maybe there's a difference here, but beseder. Tov. Beseder. And the next pasuk is the powerful pasuk. Eten lecha melech be'api ve'ekach be'evrati. I'm going to read the Dat Mikra. It says it so pashut. Achen mileti az et bakashat ha'am. Says about that, I really did what the people asked. I gave them a king. Eten lecha melech be'api. What's be'api?
In my mouth?
Angry.
In my anger. Right? Af is anger, right? Aval lo mitoch ratzon, ki mitoch af ve'evra. I gave you a king, but out of anger. Eten le, remez l'divrei Shmuel, who says to them, listen, it's bad what you're asking for. Ve'ekach be'evrati. It says, so what is ve'ekach? I gave you a king. This is the next half of the pasuk.
That refers to Shaul?
Eten lecha melech be'api is Shaul.
Not to Yerovam?
No, from the
very
beginning. This is Shaul, very beginning. Eten lecha melech in Shmuel, the beginning of Shmuel. Eten lecha melech be'api ve'ekach be'evrati, and I will take him in my anger. What does that take him? Ve'ekach oto et hamelech bekas gadol. Ve'yesh kan remez lemalchei Yisrael shenaflu ze achrei ze b'yedei ze kol malchem naflu en koreh b'hem elai. He says, king after king. Remember we talked about the end of Malchut Yisrael, how it became completely crazy house, right? He killed him, and he killed him, and he ruled for a week, and he ruled for a month, and he ruled for a year, and he ruled for 5 years, and he ruled for 10 years, and he ruled for 2 years, and he ruled for a month. It was horrible. So he says, I gave you a king in my anger, and I'm taking a king in my anger. And you're going to completely collapse. And here, be'emet, we get to the question. Before we go on to the next psukim, that talk about the gzar din, the punishment that they're going to get. But we have to stop here for a moment and be'emet raise what Shushan said. Because I really think this is the question of Hoshea. Is a king good or is a king not good?
No.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay, we answered that question. I thought it would be more of a discussion, but I think we've decided. And I want to say that.
Oh, but Hashem has instituted like a concept, shoftim v'shotrim. Yeah, do that. And when they asked for a king, it wasn't like the first thing that they needed to, because Yeshua ben Nun died.
Or it's after the Shoftim they asked for a king, like after the whole
Right.
Tufat Shoftim.
They didn't have a strict leader, like that's why.
So it says, I remind you, it will say in what we're learning now in Shoftim, repeatedly, right? Which seems to say that we were waiting for a melech, and a melech would be good.
It's mitzvah.
Okay, there were two good malachim.
It's a mitzvah, it's a machloket if it's a mitzvah, or it's a reshut, right?
It's the land you have to want. First is to.
I hear that's one opinion. There's another opinion that it's not a mitzvah, that it's a mitzvah like Eshet Yifat Torah. It's a mitzvah like the pretty wife in war. Are you supposed to take a wife in war?
Evil? No. That's not even
No. So here it says, listen, if you come and ask for a king,
Here's how you do it.
this is how you do it.
But that's not what we read in the morning.
There was
In the morning it
one
says
in
we
you.
have our worst crimes, but if we had a king, it wouldn't happen. It doesn't really say that actually.
Anyway, what I want to say is like this. In the Torah itself, it's not clear what is the preferred rulership.
It says if, no?
It's very interesting that those Prakim in Dvarim, if you break them down, there are a couple different prototypes of leadership. One of them seems to be presenting the Navi as the leader, the Navi as the conduit. In other words, it may be, and this is where we're seeing Sefer Shoftim, right? Talking throughout Sefer Shoftim, we said all the problems in Sefer Shoftim, but it could be that Sefer Shoftim was an attempt to establish a living space built on this concept of having no king. Because when you have a king, it's really dangerous. A king has the ability to focus all the attention of the people away from where it has to be. And when they're just individuals or even just tribes, each tribe has its own, I would say, autonomy to do what's right. So even if Ploni is doing wrong, I could still stay autonomously good.
They can bring him to court if he does something wrong.
I'm saying like, but let's say one shevet goes off the derech, it doesn't mean the other shevet has to be there. But when you have a king, as we saw in Achav and Yerovam, they coerce the whole nation to follow something. A king is a dangerous character. The power one person has to force the tzibur, force the klal, to follow a certain path, it seems that it is not pashut at all. When Shmuel says to Hashem, they want a king, and then Hashem says they don't not want you, which means, what did Shmuel think? That they don't want him, right? That's what he thinks. They don't want the leader. He says they don't want me as a leader. Hashem goes like to the depth of Malchut and says they're tired of me. They want a human being to be there. Now, is the human like the calf in the intermediary? We could go off wax interestingly on what, I don't know why I say that word, wax, but it's not, whatever, lo shayach. We could go into understanding how maybe the king is sort of an intermediary between man and God, and that's a problem. It's just like the Egel. But on the basic level, we talked about how the king has the ability to be instead of God. When I need something, I go to the king. When we need to fight, we go to the king. When we need to settle a dispute, we go to the king. Now, the king, in a sense, takes over all of Hashem's jobs, per se. No.
Nothing happens with a Navi or Sefer.
What? The Navi doesn't attempt to use that power. The Navi doesn't wield power like that.
So then, for example, there's no king, then who's gonna be in charge of all this stuff?
Autonomies.
Yeah, why do you need someone to be in charge of all this stuff?
Because like,
Shoftim
no,
versus
humans
Shoftim.
can't just like if it's a
No,
war,
like
humans
you
can't just like be like,
legislate
all right,
your
fuck, get together and fight. You need like a general, like the head of
So
the army.
when something comes up, you and someone and send out. That's what the Shoftim, in a sense, were. Something came up, they were sent. Now we talked about throughout Sefer Shoftim of seeing how Am Yisrael gets bashed time after time again. But Nagid, Otniel becomes a Shofet, and there are 40 years of peace. And then Ehud is 80 years apiece. Shimshon is 20 and 20. And Yiftach is 8. And they're like, hey, there are times of prosperity.
The Sefer Shoftim, the country wasn't built up. It was still in its infancy.
I agree. The question, if we read that as an infancy towards kingship, in other words, there was a movement towards, which is definitely what it seems to be.
There was like one righteous king, David HaMelech.
No, Chizkiyahu,
Okay, but
Asa, Yoshaphat, Yoshiao. They're a couple. Give me more credit.
To go back to the discussion about how a king can like be dangerous and everything and all, it says in Shoftim, especially like what we probably read earlier today, it said Vahi Bayamin Ein Melech Yisrael, something like that. There was no king. It was in the days when there was no king for Melech Yisrael. So to someone's knowledge, to someone reading it, and they might be like, "Oh, this must be in the time when this was before Shalom Melech." Well, yeah, obviously, but to what we learned earlier today, is it possible that could also be referring to that it was in the times when people didn't go to Mishkan Shiloh or Shiloh that much, and what it means by Vahi Bayamin Ein Melech Yisrael means that people weren't going to Mishkan Shiloh.
Or I'll say what that in Melech B'Yisrael in
Right.
Melech B'Yisrael. Hashem. There's
Right.
no Hashem.
Like,
So it could be. It doesn't seem to
it
be.
doesn't mean that there was no human king. It means that people
Weren't serving God either.
Serving Hashem.
So that's interesting. First of all, it's an interesting reading into it.
And by any chance, is it possible how probably people in Israel read it wrong and thought that, oh, we need a human king, not.
First of all, it's a nice perush. I like the perush. It's interesting. I did not think of it. It's an interesting perush. Right? Do you understand what I just said? In other words, the pasuk says, "Vayimim en melech b'Yisrael," meaning there's a problem that there's no God, God's not your king. The people said, "Oh, if we don't have a king, we must need a king. So let's go get a human king," which was reading it wrongly. That Sefer Shoftim. Interesting. So I'm not sure exactly. I think there is a lot to what you're saying. I don't think specifically the pshat of that pasuk doesn't seem to be that. But it definitely the remez, like in the Megillah, right, when he says the Laila Unadash not Melech, who's the Melech, Malkos Shel Olam. So in this case, a Melech may be, since there's really no Melech.
So the question: so if the concept of Malchut is so, it's not best case in this understanding. Why was it then when the most glorious and prosperous time for Am Yisrael was during David and Shlomo? And also Moshe also was kind of a king, like he didn't have the title, but was acting like a king.
And the other side of the question is what we say. Why are we waiting for Melech HaMashiach?
Seems like this is the ideal, no?
Yeah. Why do we want a Melech HaMashiach? So I'm saying, right, that seems to be. So I want to say, and I'm going to say this carefully, that I think in the Navi we have different opinions of the Nevi'im themselves, and through the prophecies, different takes on how to value Malchut. And there are going to be some prophets who are going to be more gung-ho into Malchut, that is good. And some prophets like Hoshea, who are more like Shmuel. Did Shmuel like Malchut? Shmuel, Mamash, was not so impressed with the Malchut. At the end, he's going to anoint David also. But with David, he's not so involved with David. And with Shaul, he's very disappointed after what happens. He didn't want to do it in the first place, and he's disappointed after. And it's that parak is one of the most challenging prakim to our understanding of how Jewish government is supposed to work. Do we want a king or do we not want a king? Are we expecting it? Is that what we need? And then, of course, our questions: is a state a king? Is a government a king? What exactly is a king? An individual, or is a king the rulership? That's already another discussion that we have to develop hala. But the basic discussion of whether even the king himself was something that is, what is it? I think Hoshea, as Shushan said and understood, he's against Chad Mashmait. Hoshea says Malchut was a mistake. This last pasuk is the last time they're really going to reference it. Eten lecha melech be'api. I gave you a king in my anger. I'm going to take him away in my anger. It was never what I wanted to do, says Hashem. It was never what I wanted to do. Me'atchala.
It's a real. How do we understand then that we're taking what the Navi's opinion? These things.
So remember we talked about Shivim Panim La Torah, right? First of all, we talked about Shivim Panim La Torah, and that the Torah has prisms, has ways. There is a world dimension where this is real. It's really real. All this Bikurat al-Malchut is actually real. On the other side, there's another side. And here, I'm trying to do, there may be an Ukimta. And the Ukimta may be, Malchut Yisrael doesn't work. Malchut Yehuda may be able to work. Now, if I'm throwing this out, okay? Now, this is not clear in Hoshea, because Hoshea, because he deals with Malchut Yehuda. Very rarely does he go there. But if I want to differentiate the two, then what would be the difference between the two? There's really one big difference.
They're leaders.
Baalim and Beit HaMikdash.
It says Beit HaMikdash, the Agalim, right? One has Beit HaMikdash and one doesn't. And if we would look into that way, we would say that possibly Malchut without a Mikdash is not what we want. Now, that can't work. As the Dat Mikra says, talking about Malchut Yisrael. I gave you a king in my anger. Then we can reread and say it's not talking about Shaul. Who's it talking about? Yerovam. What was my anger? My anger from Shlomo. I was angry at Shlomo. All Malchut Yisrael started b'chet. It is not the ideal. Hoshea is saying here. It was not the ideal. It's not what I wanted to happen. And I'm taking it, and I'm going to take it back, Malchut Yisrael, and get rid of it. These are not things he's going to say about Malchut Yehuda. Malchut Yehuda is something else. Malchut Yehuda was born out of the right way. I don't know what to say. Out of someone that we do want. Now, again, now we can try to find the differences. In other words, look at this two and say, what's the difference? It may be David HaMelech is different than Yerovam. B'mahut, right? Existentially, spiritually, they're different. You can go there, Yehuda as opposed to Yosef, right? There are all kinds of things that we can talk about. And the other we can talk about is a Malchut with a Mikdash as opposed to a Malchut without a Mikdash, which seems to be more what's played about here in Hoshea. When Hoshea seems, the two major themes of Hoshea are the Agalim and the Malchut. Those are the things that he bashes time and then he plays them off, and he plays off them when the religion serves the Malchut as opposed to the Malchut serving the religion. He's been playing for many prakim already with the two, the Agalim and the Malchut, all the time. And it may be the statement that a king needs a Mikdash to be able to really, really be a king of Israel. What?
So it's fine. The idea will be to stay humble.
The idea is to have the presence of God who you are served to, as opposed to what we explained in the Shir this morning, you, in a sense, the Egel is subservient to you. I make God serve what I want as opposed to I serve God. It is a subtle, not always clear motion of man, but it's Shamayim V'aretz. It's the whole difference of your where's your epicenter? Is God your epicenter and you serve Him, or are you the epicenter and God serves you? So Yerovam, making these agalim from the very, very beginning, he used the service of God for himself, while David HaMelech dances like the most pashut person before Aron Hashem. Right? David HaMelech understands that he is just like the maidservants before Hashem. Yerovam wasn't dancing for anyone, okay? He wasn't there dancing. So it may be. Right. So a king who really has the ability to understand the hierarchy of where he stands, that may be what Hashem wants, in a sense. So that's in Mashiach has to be with the Mikdash.
Is from the line of David, no?
Ken, what I'm saying, but that sense, Mashiach without a Mikdash is a problem.
Why not better a Navi as like the leader of the generation? Like a great Navi.
Like Moshe Rabbeinu.
Yeah.
Okay, we saw that. Remember we saw that in the Al-Sheikh? The Al-Sheikh asked, remember the Al-Sheikh? We saw that, remember we saw the Al-Sheikh who asked that question? He says, why are we davening for David HaMelech? We want Moshe Rabbeinu to come back. And his answer isn't so clear, right? His answer there was, he says, listen, no, we need both, and we have them both, and Moshe Be'emet is going to come back. Be'emet, in that kivun.
You also learned that like Hoshea is going to be like the middleman between Moshe and us.
Can. In other words, there is a point where we'll have Moshe is a major figure in the Geulah. It was fascinating. It was a fascinating. I'd never seen anything like that before I saw the Al-Sheikh. Okay, I never saw that idea of Moshe coming back, but with what we're saying, it sort of makes sense that maybe the prophet is a higher. All these are things that are trying to be spelled out throughout the prophets. And what exactly? How does the leadership work here? Tov.
You should pray for Malchut or no? That's my question.
You do.
Yes, I'm saying, because we're supposed to pray for Malchut.
You do, right? You say, Tzemach David Avdecha, Merat Atzmiach, Vekarno Tarum Vishuatecha.
For David's Malchut.
David, for sure, David, Malchut David. No, we're not talking for.
Malchut of David.
Oh, for sure, that's what you're right. Yeah, yes, there's no, right, thank you for that diuk. Yeah, it's not, that's for Malchut. Right? Malchut David, yeah.
David, you're our king.
Sarur Avon Ephraim. Hoshea finishes up this chapter saying, Sarur Avon Ephraim Tfuna Chatata. Ephraim's sin is very, very tied in. It's not going anywhere. Okay, his sin. Chevlei Yoleda Yavo Lo Hu Ben Lo Chacham Ki Et Lo Ya'amod B'mishbar Banim. Wow, there's so many readings of how to read this thing. Okay, there's a mashal here of a birth. Okay, but it seems that this is a nevuat puranut. It's a nevuat of it's a prophecy of destruction of bad, evil tidings. That Am Yisrael is like a someone giving birth. The birth is the galut. In other words, there is something happening here. There is a leida, a birth going to happen here, and the birth is Am Yisrael going to galut. Okay. When it's time for birth, they're going to die. That's what he says. Okay. Ben lo chacham ki et lo ya'amod b'mishbar banim. You won't be able to handle the end when the child comes out. Miyad she'ol evdem, and there's a question. He says, should I save them from hell? Should I save them from death? No, I will be the death. Ehi dvarecha mavet, I will be the dever. I will be the sickness that causes them death. I will be the demon or the plague that brings them down to hell. Nocha misater me'enai. No, go retracting my wrath. Nocham, right? Litnachem means to retract what I was going to do before, to go back and to say sorry and not do what I was going to do. He says, no, I'm not going to see Nocham. Misater me'enai. It will be hidden from my eyes. The possibility of Nocham, the possibility of retracting my anger. Kihu ben achim yafri. יבוא קדים רוח אדוני ממדבר עולה ויבוש מקורו וחרב מעיינו. This is talking about the punishment. He says, even though hu ben achim yafri, even though he has very plentiful fields, and yafri, right, comes from the word pruvu. He has achim is achu, says the Dat Mikra. It's lush fields or swamplands, good swamplands like that you can grow things in. Yavo kadim, so Hashem says, even though he is like settled and happy now, there will come the eastern wind, turn everything into desert, everything will dry up, sword will come and destroy all the good things. Te'esham shomron ki marta be'elohera. Right? Shomron is has to take ownership for its own sins. Te'esham shomron. Tisa onesh ashmata. It will receive the punishment. Ki marta be'elohea, because they revolted against their gods. Becherev yipola. They'll fall by the sword. Their children will be bashed, and the pregnant women will be cut up. Yivuka will be cut open. Yay.
Why the chapter split?
Okay, yeah, it's a great question. There's a question for the Christians on this one. Why did they stop there? Okay, so Te'esham Shomron, Be'emet, the first pasuk there, do we read it in this way or read it that way? So we'll see. The Dat Mikra here read it as it appears in Be'emet, right? As that it's the end of a parsha, right? That's the right way to read it. Is the way Dat Mikra. As pasuk Aleph is really Shayach, the ending of the previous chapter. What?
That's how it's broken down. Also with the.
Okay.
Is this how it would be with the space and the scroll?
What?
The space.
Yeah, that's the way it looks. Yeah. Okay. So that's a pshat of the chapter. We talked about one issue. We talked about the malchut. Okay, that Bemet. How do we answer the question malchut? We gave a couple answers. Possibly it's malchut Yisrael, malchut Yisrael. Possibly Bemet. The ideal rule is not to have a king at all. These options exist, and there are Bemet discussions to discuss and see. The Malbim has a couple points here to point out a couple. Let me start from the end, Dafka, okay, because I don't want to miss the end. There are 2 points that the Malbim brings at the end that are both very, very potent. First thing the Malbim says, when we talk about the mashal of having a baby, okay, so Hashem, we said the birth here, right, in the mashal of having the baby, the birth was the galut. The Malbim reads it hafuch mamash. The Malbim reads, this mashal is, they were having a really hard time, Am Yisrael. Things were getting bad, Ashur was coming in, causing a lot of harm. Says Hoshea, this is a chance for redemption. When things get really hard, it is a chance for redemption. This is a prototype of things that happen to Am Yisrael. When things get very harsh, it means that birth is coming. It's a fascinating tfisa. Okay? Birth is coming. It is a possibility for a birth. Says Hoshea, this is what was happening. Hoshea is talking to the people. He says, people, everyone can bring their things. Okay, I'm being careful here. Okay. There was a real chance for Geula towards the end of Malchut Yisrael, says Hoshea. There is a chance for Geula. Completely different reading of the chapter. But the baby, the tinok, halo chacham, that's what he calls him, right? Aval tinok ben lo chacham, he's not coming out. He's not coming out of the womb. Because, why? He's stuck. What is he stuck by? Read the previous chapter, Pasuk Yud Bet. Sarur Avon Ephraim. The sins, the iniquities of Ephraim are tying him down. It's like the baby is supposed to come out, but his feet are tied to the womb. He can't come out. What are they tied by? By the sins. He's not doing tshuva. Says the Malbim, Hashem really, really wants to save them from Ashur. He brought the evils for them to do tshuva. Remember, what did he say in the previous chapter? When I did good for you, what happens? Then it's like us. So what does he have to do? He shifts into the other mode, which is cause pain and hardship. And then you're suffering. Cry out and say, I'm wrong. Say, Hashem, we were wrong to leave you. Says the Malbim, there is a chance for Geula at the end of Malchut Yisrael. Politically, he says that was Hoshea ben Elah who opened up the gates, remember? Who opened up the walls. You guys remember we learned about Hoshea and Shalom ben Yavesh, two kings towards the end of Malchut Yisrael, who took away the guards. And what happened? Ezra, remember? That's what you just said. The other people said, no, we want the Agalim. It's not we're forced to do the Agalim. We want the Agalim. We shot ourselves in the foot. We stopped this. Now, this is a amazing, amazing statement about what happens when you have a hardship. What's going on when hardships are happening? And remember, we talked throughout Hoshea. We've talked about it less in these last chapters, but throughout the beginning chapters, we talked about how Hoshea is the beginning of Hoshea is teaching Hoshea that Hashem loves Am Yisrael mamash, and everything He does is from love. It got pretty sketchy as we went on. Hashem seems to get more and more angry against Am Yisrael, right? But now, the Malbim, suddenly at the very end of the book, he's suddenly like, chak, giving us another slap to remember where we are, right before we see the last chapter, which is the chapter of Nechama, of comfort. But at this point, the Malbim says, Hashem is saying, listen, when Hashem does bad to you, it's like birth. It hurts. Right, your wife, you guys will see. Soon. They scream and they yell and they're really in pain. They're really in pain. But there's no other way to have a baby.
That's what I was. No pain to mama.
No, not at all. When you cut someone open, it's fine. It's no problem. Yeah,
That's what Glenn said. She didn't feel anything.
6 weeks.
Yeah, because great. But right after when you wake up, you have this huge cut through your stomach, and it's nice and fun.
Nice.
It's a cesarean, right? A cesarean.
Twins after.
Wow. Babies were still crying. It's silly to be.
Anyway, it hurts. It mamash hurts. But birth and pain apparently are inherently, intrinsically connected to one another. It's a very strange thing, but that's the way the world works.
From like the punishment for Chava?
From then on, there's the etzev til dibanim. There's some kind of pain gain in the world that we're in. Okay? There's some kind of connection. Says the Malbim, this is a mivneh that Hashem has had. When Am Yisrael are having tzarot, yalla. So there's a chance. There's a chance. If you do tshuva, there's a chance for what seems to be an unsolvable situation to turn into a great birth. Okay? You could turn into a great birth. Dafka. But they don't, because they're still sinning. In this case, that's what's so tragic about this story. They don't. And then he goes on and says one more thing, and with that we'll end with a beautiful statement. The Malbim says here, an amazing statement. He says like this. In Pasuk, the last Pasuk Tetvav. Kihu ben achim yafri. Okay? Yavo kadim. Now, what's kihu ben achim yafri? Now, the way we explain the Dat Mikra, use very botanical, right? He between the achu, achim is the plural of an achu. An achu is a place where the cattle graze. So achim is yafri. He is grazing in the things, and then Hashem says, I'm going to waste him, pretty much. The Malbim reads it completely differently. What does he read, achim? Brothers. Listen to it. I'm going to read the Malbim, just how you have the hair stand up on the back of your necks, okay? Musav ala nocham. Maze ki hu ben achim yafri. Who's the who? Because he, between brothers, or whatever yafri means. Who's the he? The Malbim has an amazing peush. He says, the nocham. Remember, Hashem says, I won't come back on my word. I won't litnachem. I won't change what I'm about to do. He says, that change is on the condition, is conditional to what goes on between brothers. He goes like this. Musav al hanocham. Hu, hanocham, lo yasa pri rak ben achim. The only time Hashem is going to really have nocham, when he will retract his bad decrees, is when it's ben achim. What does ben achim mean? Be'et sheYisrael achim umitchabrim ze laze, az haya efsharut el hanocham. When Israel are brothers and connect to each other, then there is a possibility of Hashem retracting his decree. Should I say that again? Should I read that again?
That's a big one, Rav.
Can I read that again?
It's a big one.
בעת שישראל אחים ומתחברים זה לזה, אז היה אפשרות אל הנוחם. There is a chance for Hashem to retract the evil decree when we are brethren to one another, when we are connected to one another, when we love one another. But when they're not, the Malbim here brings the fight between the katot, between the two, the ones who wanted the Agalim and the ones who wanted Beit HaMikdash. There's a fight. But when they're fighting, Hashem says, that's it. There's no room here. So here at the very end of the chapter, the Malbim talks right to every one of us. And he says, you want a chance for solution? You want a chance for redemption? Achim. Achim, achim, achim.
It's pretty hard, Rav.
I know.
It's pretty hard nowadays.
I know. It's pretty hard. Yeah, but they're like this, they're like this, they're left and they're this and that. Brothers.
Rav, today I was on the train, just going to Shiva. One of the worst things that ever happened to me. Worst thing in my life. I was sitting there on the train. This guy, like biggest smile ever. Like, religious guy. So, like, he's walking down aisle, some guys from feeling very nice. He did a very nice way, not forcefully. And then comes this one guy. This one guy yells at him and is like, I hate you guys. I'm like, why are you asking me that? That's the worst feeling ever. He was like, and after he was like talking to like his friend about it, and he was like, and he was like, if you know, if I was like the Rosh, and what's English, like the prime minister, if I was the prime minister, I would have like punished all of them, if I did that to him. And I was sitting right there, and he saw him like keep see all this. The worst things ever. I was like, the worst feelings ever. Like I wanted to cry. It was like, it's a Jew right next to me, and he's just like so far, not there.
No, he is the Ashkenazim say highly Yid.
No, that's the point. He's a Yid, and he's saying this kind of. That's the point. That's why if it was a Christian, I'd care less.
They wanted to go serve the Beit Hashem, and they killed them. They didn't let them go through. They wanted to serve the Agalim. They wanted the Agalim. They wanted
We're back.
not religion.
You know what though? That guy, I'm pretty sure he never sat here.
Oh, no,
He never sat in yeshiva.
Definitely.
So he's speaking out of ignorance. So when he speaks out of ignorance, it's like a child.
Yeah,
Imagine
I
if
know,
Betsy
exactly.
started explaining to you how a car works. You wouldn't even
I
listen.
would take him by his word.
Right? You take him at his word. So too somebody that you know has never learned. You know the point.
But
You
unfortunately, someone who doesn't know anything, you wouldn't feel would have the antagonism towards.
right, but it's still not. He can't hate it because you know what it is.
I hear what you're
He can
saying.
think he hates it.
I
He
hear.
believes he hates
I
it.
want to tell you,
Even
stop
worse,
it,
he'll
stop
act
it.
like he hates it.